Hey everyone, this is my wrap up for week 12 and kind of for week 13. There was nothing due in week 13, so this will be the final wrap up until the course wrap up video. So in a moment, I'm going to go over to my keyboard, walk through the solutions on the visualization assignment, which was the last assignment prior to the coding project. There's still one coding project memo that's due. So I'll go over to my keyboard, talk about that. The only other things to mention, so for next week, the only thing is you got to get the final memo for the coding project. That's due by Friday, May 1st, end of day. No extensions on that because the semester does end on Friday. So you need to get that in by Friday, May 1st. And then the final exam. The final exam will open tomorrow, Monday, the 27th. And it will be open between Monday and Friday. So again, you need to get that done by Friday at 11:59 p.m. It is just like the midterm. It's open, computer open notes, just no generative AI. So don't be using generative AI. Again, I'm grading you based on the code covered in the course. So if I start seeing code that's veering wildly far from what we covered, which often means you're using generative AI, you're going to lose a lot of points on that. So it's not really to your benefit to use generative AI. And other things to mention. So similar to the midterm, there will be a Jupyter file that you will need to download to your computer and then upload into Jupyter Hub. You'll answer all your questions, the coding questions on that file. You will then save and export it as an HTML file and upload it into the final exam, just like the midterm. So the process is the same. There will be managerial questions in Canvas, and then the coding questions you'll answer on this Jupyter Notebook file and upload that prior to the exam closing. So you have 2.5 hours. I think that's plenty of time for this exam. So if the exam closes and you weren't able to get your Jupyter file in and you need to email it to me, first of all, I expect that you'll email it immediately after the exam closes. I can see when the exam closes. I can see when you email me. So I don't want to be seeing people email me their file like 6 hours later, because the point is you're not supposed to keep working on the exam. Secondly, there's a 2-point penalty, late penalty for having to email your file to me after the exam closes. So just give yourself a good 5 minutes prior to the exam closing to get that file uploaded with whatever you have. If you haven't completed it, at least get what you have, so I can give you partial credit for what you do have. Okay. Let me go over to my keyboard and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, just a couple things to go over. So first of all, the grades and comments for the visualization assignment will be posted later today. I'm still waiting for the graders to finalize the grading on that. But I have posted the solution file. So if you go back to the visualization assignment in Canvas, you'll see a link to the solution file here. So let me just quickly go over this since the final exam opens tomorrow. So I just want to make sure that I've had a chance to walk through these solutions. Okay, so once again, we're using this Sol bike share data set. This first graph, I wanted it to be a scatter plot. So it needed to kind of look like this, a scatter plot with temperature, number of bikes rented. I wanted separate lines for each color, okay? And then adding an annotation here. Okay, so here's the key. For a scatter plot, it's geom point. Our x variable is temperature, and our y variable is the bike count, so rented bike count. And then because I want to separate out the 3 different forecasts, right, I want to color the data by forecast, I would say color equals forecast. Okay. Because I want linear regression lines, I have to add on geom smooth, method equals LM. LM stands for linear model. That's what puts the regression lines for each forecast group. Okay. To update the titles, I used the labs layer. So there's my title, my x-axis, my y-axis title. Okay. And then finally for annotations, I think I told you where I wanted to put it. So I want it to be left aligned at negative 20 degrees Celsius and 3,000 bikes rented. So negative 20 degrees Celsius is on the x-axis. So x equals negative 20. And 3,000 bikes rented, that's on the y-axis. Y equals 3,000. And I'm left aligning it there. HA equals at left. HA stands for horizontal alignment. Okay. The label is just what I want to print. Okay, I'm annotating text, but the label is actually what's printing. And then I think I did want it in color blue. Yeah, so just color equals blue. Okay, the second graph was a side-by-side box plot. Okay, so here I'm looking at the bike rental count split out by weekday. Okay, so remember, so first of all, geom box plot, that's how I do a box plot. My y-axis is the numeric variable, rented bike count. The x-axis is the categorical, the categories I want to split it out by, which is weekday. Okay, once again, I'm specifying the axis labels and the title. So I would use labs to do that. Okay, and then I did want this to be in the order of day, and I actually gave that to you. So you had to put in that scaled x discrete. What that does is it sorts the days according to the list that I gave it. So if you don't put this in, it's going to sort the days alphabetically. So for example, I think it would be Friday would come first. But I want this to be in terms of the actual days of the week. And that's what limits allows me to do, is I can then give it an order that I specify. Okay. Finally, the third graph was a stacked bar chart. Okay, and for this one, I'm looking once again, I'm splitting it up by season, and I'm interested in less versus greater than the median. Okay, so first of all, bar chart is geom bar. Okay, my x-axis is season, winter, spring, summer, fall. And then I'm splitting the bars by the high bike count variable. Now remember, with a bar chart, we're filling in the bars. So you may be tempted to use color equals high byte count, but if you use color equals, what happens is it just colors the outlines of the boxes. It doesn't actually fill the boxes in, okay? And so the point here is for a bar chart, if you're segmenting your bars, you need to use fill as your aesthetic mapping, okay? The position equals fill, what that does is it goes up to a proportion of 1. Otherwise, you have bars that are at different heights. I wanted all of the bars to go up to a proportion of 1. They should all extend to 100%, okay? Once again, I wanted you to use scale discrete for the limits to order the seasons. Otherwise, again, it does it alphabetically, okay? I think I wanted you to change the display of the tick marks. So the default for a bar chart is to use numbers. So this would be 0, 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, and 1.0. I wanted you to display this as percentages. And to do that, you would have to use a scale. And remember, labels in scale specifies what's actually going to display for the tick marks. So all I'm doing is I'm changing the labels of the tick marks on the y-axis. Similarly here for bike rentals, less than medium, greater than median, I think it was true, false. And I wanted you to, or actually it would be false, true, because it's alphabetical. I wanted you to change it with these words, less than median, greater than median. So again, I'm going to use a scale for the fill variable. So scale fill, it's a discrete variable. And again, I'm using labels to change the display of the legend entries, okay? And then finally, labs just allows me to change the title, the axis labels. Notice for X, I wanted you to take out the X axis label, just put quote, quote. For the fill legend, I would change the label for fill. So fill equals bike rentals. Okay, so those are the solutions for the 3 graphs. Let me know if you have any questions on that, okay? And as I said, the grades on these will be coming out later today. The only other thing I wanted to point out was the last 2 things that are due. The coding project is due Friday. The instructions are here. And the final exam will go live at midnight tonight. So at midnight on April 27th, the final exam will go live. So you just click on this link and you'll be able to access it here. It's 2.5 hours, okay? And just note that it will close at 2.5 hours. So make sure that you've uploaded your Jupyter file with all of your code prior to the exam closing. There's a 2-point penalty for emailing that to me after the exam closes. So you need to get that in. Okay, and that also is due by Friday. Everything for the course is due by Friday, May 1st. So you have these final 2 assignments. Okay, That's it. Let me know if you have any questions. I will have my regular office hours as well as the TAs this week. This will be the last week of office hours, obviously, but if you need to meet outside of my office hours, just let me know. Okay, so again, let me know if any questions come up. Good luck on the exam. This is your chance to kind of pull it all together for the course. Oh, I should have mentioned, so the exam, in terms of what it covers, it really starts at predictive modeling. So I will not be asking questions on inferential modeling. As a heads up, you'll likely have to do some feature engineering, okay? So you'll have to do some feature engineering, and then we'll be doing some predictive modeling, visualization, ROC curves, all that stuff. As a reminder, the coding from the Artificial Intelligence Week, that coding I'm not going to ask you to do. So that's neural networks and the natural language processing stuff we did. I could ask you conceptual questions about those things, but I will not ask you to actually code any of those things. You're not going to have to build a neural network model or have to do like a sensitivity analysis using tokenization and all that stuff like we did, okay? Similarly, for the following week with predictive performance, you are responsible for knowing how to do ROC curves, for how to calculate the area under the curve. But when it comes to the Newton's J statistic, I want you to understand that conceptually, I will not ask you to do the code on Newton's J statistic, okay? So I could give you the J statistic, or I could tell you something about the J statistic and ask you questions about it. I won't actually ask you to code that, okay? It's a little bit more complex, the code. Visualization, obviously, none of the visualization that I ask you to do on the exam won't be as complex as what you did on the assignment. I know that there was a lot going on with those graphs. Obviously, this is a timed exam, but you should be prepared to create a graph, to change the labels and titles on the graph. I'll probably have you do something with scales. I'll probably have you do something with annotations. Okay. But I won't have you do like 20 things with your graph, right? That's the point I'm making. Okay. That's all I have to say. Again, I have office hours this week. The TAs have office hours this week. Let us know if you have any questions. Obviously, the TAs can't answer questions specific to the exam. They could answer questions as you're preparing for the exam, but once you're taking the exam, they're not really allowed to sort of answer those types of questions. But anyway, good luck. Have a great rest of the semester. And I will likely be sending out one final wrap-up video after the exam, after the memo, just to kind of wrap up the course, okay? So have a great week, and I'll see you like in another week and a half in my next wrap-up video. Bye-bye.